Greetings, my name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, licensed presenters, the Core New Core, my patrons, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor. I'll always remember the energy in my pastor's stride up to the pulpit after the first collection had occurred. Like the basket went around and the pastor got to see what was there, and before the sermon that comes after the gospel in a Catholic tradition, I've long since taken my distance from or distinction to Catholicism, but I was raised that way. The point is that the pastor was pretty intense about saying that what's going on needs more support. So in that regard, I encourage you to send your support directly to paypal.me/michaelmillerpilates, or especially patreon.com michaelmillerpilates. Okay? So I encourage you to embrace the karma of establishing a value of what you get from this broadcast, to claim it as such. It's up to you, but I encourage you to do more than what you're already doing. Number one, the title is Primitive Pilates, and everybody likes it that way. And in the midst of that, many people are learning Pilates, and that's the only way they're being taught it. Now, primitive, maybe that's the wrong word, but compared to theory, theory is something other than folklore. And to the extent that you understand theory, folklore can appear to be primitive, which of course it is, where it comes from. For the MMP point of view, comes from three things right in Joe's book. And in taking the point of view that MMP does, it's not folklore, it's not word of mouth. So when I talk about folklore, what I mean by that is word of mouth. Folklore is word of mouth. All that we pass on in our culture from one generation to next by word of mouth is folklore. You know, look it up. As a distinction to folklore is a theory that provides an explanation that doesn't exist in the folklore. So, folklore is word of mouth. Theory is explanation. And for all the richness that you can absorb culturally through the tapestry of human experience and word of mouth, it's different than what you learn about Pilates by way of explanation, by way of pursuit of theory to explain. Number 2. Gosh, I would want to know what I was going to say about all that. Deceitful, duplicitous, fake, not forthcoming. Is a choice on how some people have approached me throughout my life, just like you. But when a person is not forthcoming, especially to the point that you know more about them than they're willing to admit to you right off the bat, their choice to be that way is an indication of their character. And just like how long someone takes to respond to you is that one of my notes? Yeah. How long you take to reply says a lot about you. So that's number 3. So in terms of character and how people, I'm talking about being a Pilates instructor and trying to make a living as one and being able to add 2 and 2, meaning make money to do that. And by recognizing that, it's human nature for anyone who wants to just come up and pull your head open and take out of it what they want, and without even so much as a concern about whether the value exchange is appropriate or not, right? Be Aretha Franklin. Don't sing unless you get paid right there, right before. In advance, right? Get paid in advance, and then she sings. And I hold that up to you as an example of being a Michael Miller Pilates presenter, because you're there to present, and the presentation is an explanation. That's all it is. And it's over a particular amount of time, and that's all agreed to up front so that I'm expecting someone. So if they knock, I have to go answer, and that will be the end of my broadcast for today. Making comment about how long it takes for someone to respond to you, and how the culture in that has so just dissolved into almost a new level or a new dimension of interaction. In the old days, I imagine thank you notes pre-addressed and stamped, so that when you got back from wherever you got invited to, you could write out the thank you and put it in the mail the next day, right? That pressure of a response time and what it said about you. And today, all the way through my life, I get looser and looser with the kind of respect you show when you give an immediate thank you to someone that deserves it. Now, responses aren't always thank yous, but the time frames that you use are another indication of the character that you display and how a discerning Pilates instructor will interpret. So let's go to number 4. Maybe the only thing should have been number 4 today. And so number 4 Don't even consider anything about Pilates, but just consider the identification of core nu tension in the body as the way it engages itself to move through space. Not an imagination, just the literal biodynamics of what's going on. That's the MMP point of view. You can ignore it if you want, or dismiss it if you want, or intellectually think that you're bigger than or better than, or the picture is bigger than the significance of what the identification of the biomechanics really is. We all have capacities in our being, thinking, and observing. When it comes to core nu tension, nothing compares. That's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to show you, okay, here is folklore. Here is biomechanics. Here is an ideal point of view of Pilates. We all will be part of the folklore of Pilates. Some of us will recognize core nu tension as a biomechanical fact in the body, and that nothing compares to that. And if there's something that does, let me know. No, you don't want to, or want to admit it. But that doesn't matter, as long as, if you're trying to survive as a Pilates instructor, you at least know that I give to you this knowledge of oppositional rotation between axes in the body, and that is the means to developing the body uniformly. Nothing compares to that. So in closing, recognize the difference between folklore and theory. Right here, the whole Pilates culture is folklore. MMP takes a look at Pilates to explain it from a theoretical point of view. And then I go, oh no, you could never do that. But that world is already here and upon us, and I've already had the pleasure of traveling to share that knowledge with others that only now are coming to appreciate the distinction of the knowledge of core nu tension and an ideal point of view of Pilates compared to folklore. An explanation that isn't within the folklore. If only folklore could only be what Pilates is, that'd be a great world. And I would have spent my life much more entangling myself into the thread of the folklore if it weren't for the impetus of my joy to share the identification of the ideal, which in MMP is the experience. And the experience to be had is the complete coordination of your being, your thinking, and your observing. And that even though observing is where all the mystery and the transcendence comes into the pursuit of what you're doing with Pilates in terms of reflecting back to reality, what reality reflects to us. Within folklore, theory can be a real intrusion and a disruption of one's ability to defend oneself in a world where less and less of who you are and who you trained with matters, as much as where do you fit in for making whatever someone's willing to pay you. For whatever their version of Pilates is. There you go. That's what this is all about. Don't be afraid of theory, because the more you're aware of theory to go with whatever your folklore is, the more the theory protects you for being what you claim to be, if you claim to be a Pilates instructor. You add theory to your foundation, whatever your folklore credentials are. Don't be afraid. Find the hope in appreciating the fact that, at least accepting it. It's so sad. But I'll tell you what I witnessed yesterday is youth trying to reach across a language barrier to understand what I'm talking about. That's more than people that speak my language make an effort to do to understand what I'm talking about. It is to you and to them that are looking for something more than what else is out there, that can find knowledge of core new tension and an ideal point of view of Pilates, MMP, CT, and MMP. So, if this were Facebook, you could go down my feed and find links to a t-shirt by a couple sizes bigger than you think. Or what else? My app. And you only are Apple. It's never going to come out on Apple, my lifetime. And if it doesn't last in my lifetime in Android, it may not last at all or come back in Apple. So stoop to buying an Android tablet on the cheap, or even asking one of your friends to buy the Reformer Michael Miller Pilates app on the Google Play Store, because it is definitively the sequence of exercises on the Reformer with pictures to go along with it. And so many people were disappointed that it doesn't just reach out and talk to them in video and interactive, but it wasn't the point in the first place to produce a list like that. So you may not think there's any value in the t-shirt, but certainly in the app that has the Reformer information on it, as much as I say, have Joe's book, right? And Joe's book is his definition, his statement, and the sequence. When it comes to the Reformer, there isn't anything more complete and more consistent with the original work than Google Play Reformer Michael Miller Pilates for a couple bucks. Don't be afraid of learning a little theory. because you can always point people that are way smarter than you are, as I have pointed people that are way smarter than me, to where the source of some of the theory comes from. So they can go research it to the depth that they want and they're interested in. My job and your job as Pilates participants or instructors is to pursue uniform eccentric loading flowing through progressive patterns of movement to find what we're after, the experience of complete coordination of being, thinking, and observing as much as we can through that whole performance of the reaction to reality. Hope and fear are different sides to the same coin. Your attitude toward the future and the inescapable situation we are all in as human beings is that our behavior reflects our choice of attitude. Our attitude is our choice. It's inescapable. You can claim victimhood all you want, but ultimately, your attitude is completely, freely, 100% your choice, regardless of your circumstance. I refer you to Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning on that one. Choose hope and allow the theory to reinforce what you already know. And if you're new, there's not so much pressure to try to fit into or be part of the aristocracy and the folklore as there is just a zealousness to learn as much as you can about Pilates. Learn the theory. Learn the biomechanics of core tension. And then be willing to know about that and not have anybody else care or know about it or even want to give it credibility. If it works for you, though, that's where the proof comes in the pudding. I'm not suggesting anything to you that you can't find sensation in on your own, an experience in of your own, pointing to that the experience that comes off of core tension is the sensation really of alignment. I put sensation in sort of a different category than experience because the complete coordination of your being, thinking, and observing is an experience. It's a state of being in the body, in the moment of the doing, according to MMP. It can be whatever else you want to make of it, or however else you want to explain it, or not explain it at all. There are some things in Pilates that are inexplicable. Doesn't mean you can't embrace what is explicable, meaning explainable, meaning something that you can understand beyond what exists within the predominant culture of folklore. Life can't live forever. Read between the lines, see behind the curtain, add two and two, not yet, connect the dots, and then evaluate perspectives, and then make an offer. It's an instruction in and of its own. This is how you add two and two. Direct your thinking. Geist.